proprietary.com website. This video is in conjunction with my blog post, which is called Where is the Fun in It? Part 2 on our website. Basically, I will talk about price action and how I like to make stories about what I am observing in the markets. It is a form of keeping myself entertained in a way. It also works quite well in teaching and coaching. This is a gimmick in a way, and the price action is just a tool and a tiny part of my systems, and even tinier part of the systematic approach. Anyway, I like to transform these bars into a story, into actions. The plot here is that there are two empires, or two factions, fighting factions if you want. One, the bulls, want to conquer northern territories, and one, the bears, want to conquer southern territories. This chart is the map, and as we see, we will see, bulls and bears will have their strongholds. The front line moves all the time. In some places the terrain is rugged, some places it's plain. And I can see rivers and trenches and woods and so on. Okay, I got carried away a bit here, but probably I lost totally my mind. But bear with me a second and see if you can see it as well. Basically, I will try to transform that chart into something like this, or like this, if you like. Strongholds, the river, the cities, and so on. With some practice, you will see that there are some very important areas in this chart that apparently is just random. Look at this area, for example. What I like to see here is that the bears are trying to conquer this territory, and they're trying to push down, and they tried to crack the bulls, and the bulls have a very strong defense here. I can see trenches or a river here. And this is more and more becoming a very important point that will tell us quite a lot about what may be happening in the future in the market. So the bears tried, and then they were repelled until something here happened. And you know, this is obviously some news, and we can imagine this to be having reinforcements. And they try again, and they stopped again here until the bulls cave in, and the bears actually can attack and conquer more territory. The bulls try to stage a comeback, but now the bears have consolidated this, and this is where a support point becomes a resistance point. And so from here, the bears can regroup and attack again. And again, and again here. And as you can see, this line becomes a very, very important line. If we go a little bit further up, we see that there is a huge battle here in order to gain control of this area. And even when the bulls basically capitulate and the market just plunged, and the bears conquer all this territory. Let me show you what happens a little bit later on, a few hours or days later. The bulls have reinforcements here, And again, there's some other sort of news and so on. And look where the rally stops. So obviously the bears have a lot of troops here. And this is going to be a very, very difficult point for the bulls now to reconquer. But there is much more. So when the bears win this battle and the bulls have to retreat, where would I expect the bulls to make their stand? They're lined in the sand and create their own defenses. Well, it's probably going to be this area here. And in fact, this area becomes another important one. This is where the bulls have their second line of defense, from where they launch the counterattack. Sometimes they lose their ground, but they try to keep it, and they try to keep it. And you can see many of these areas here. You can see that on the other side, this was the second line of defense of the bears, where the bulls try to attack and attack and attack and attack, and eventually the bears capitulated here. And you can see that when they started attacking back, counter-attacking, this area was again a quite important one. There's quite a lot of fighting here. And you can find this everywhere. Look at this area here. And you can prolong this area to see that there are other important points. You can call them consolidation, distribution, whatever you want to call it. I just like to have this imagery of a map trying to be conquered. These areas are important psychological points. You can find them usually in conjunction with other important points. And you can pick your own favorites. You can pick the Fibonacci levels, you can pick the pivot points, you can pick the big round number, all these sort of things. And the more features you have on the map to show you that this is an important area, the more importance it gains. So let me give you an example. Let's use pivot points, for instance. This is a double, triple, quadruple, whatever, bottom, and it happens to be at S1 in this particular day. This area coincides basically with the pivot point of this particular day, and you can see how the action has revolved all around this particular point. And you can see them again here. This is a pivot for this other day. And even when you have enormous news and big changes in the fortune of the bulls and the bears, these lines, combined with the areas that we identified before, give more strength to these points in the map. They came back here and they bounced here. You see how many times they bounced here. And you can pick any other indicator really. And the more evidence you have that an area is particularly important, the more you have to pay attention on this. Why is this important? Well, remember, in our specific case, we are trading breakout systems. And we're using a system that gives some signals, and we're looking for breakouts. Now, imagine that our system at this particular point is giving a signal to buy here. That would not be a high probability trade. We have a pretty high probability, or here, that this is going to be an important point. There's going to be a wood there where there's machine guns fighting against us. So we can filter what the system, which, by the way, the system being based on strict rules and almost algorithmic, doesn't really look at these kind of things. To filter these trades and just to concentrate on the more probable trades. We know, for instance, that this is a very important area. So we know that if there is a breakout of this area, there could be a pretty strong momentum, especially if they win it the second time. And we see what happens here. Look at this area here. Okay, there's a break. And also, we can say that, we can imagine that if we have a buy signal here, that's probably going to be a little bit more probable than a sell signal here. Not only that, if we know that our first target is in this area will form a kind of magnet. We have more probability that the market is trying to test that area, and so on and so forth. Of course, it doesn't work all the time, but if we collect our stats, we will see how many times it works, and if it gives a tiny little edge. And every tiny little edge will increase our probabilities of profits. And this is what trading is all about. Taking as few trades as possible to minimize costs, for instance, and taking only the higher probability trades. Now, whether this classifies as fun for you is a totally different story. It classifies a little bit like fun for me. In my very boring day, I find this not only a little bit entertaining, but more importantly, that I find it more profitable. And with this analogy, which I took to some excessive length, I think I have given you an idea of how important the price action is, especially for me. And how you can actually win the boredom from time to time by imagining these stories. Thank you very much, and have a great summer.